Today we have an amazing guest speaker to come and talk to us from an amazing team. Now, we've been through community events, we've been through door knocking, and we've been through Facebook, right? But we all got to start somewhere, right? And there is power in cold calling. And so I want to be able to bring in for today Michael Putnam. All right, Michael, you with us?
I'm here.
All right. So, Michael, welcome to Take Command of Listings Edition. It's an honor for us to have you here with us. Man, I got to know you in that short pre-interview that we had, and you have a lot of nuggets, man, to share with us today. So I'm excited for that. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your team, and then I know that you have kind of like a presentation or just a couple of notes and tips and tricks you want to share with us. So why don't you go ahead and let us know who you are.
Yeah, well, Ariel, first of all, thank you for having me. I appreciate everybody being here and allowing me to pour into you just for a little bit. I've also got two guests that are going to come with me in just a handful of minutes to share with you specifically what they have done and what they are doing in today's market to take cold calling or prospecting to for sale by owners and expireds to build their business. So as Ariel mentioned, my name is Michael Putnam. I'm the Director of Sales and Expansion with United Home Group. United Home Group is one of the largest expansion teams within the Keller Williams ecosystem, and I currently serve in the role of Director of Sales and Expansion, meaning my job is to help expand our brand, expand our opportunities, and expand our offerings to other agents so that they can build their business within our team. Simple as that. Now, to give you a little background on myself, I built my business on the phones. And when I say on the phones, I mean I hammered the phones. I still hammer the phones today. In fact, this guy here, if you can see my screen, this headset that I'm holding up, this Jabra 75 Evolve is on my head anywhere between 6 and 10 hours a day. It is like grafted to my skin because I use that thing so often. And that's just what I know. Now, you've already heard, as Ariel mentioned, other ways to generate listings in your business. There's door knocking, there's open houses, there's farming, there's Sphere, there's mailers, there's all sorts of things. And every single one of those things is a great way to generate business for yourself. The challenge for me is that it just wasn't right for me. I did open houses, I did door knocking, and I discovered over the course of 12 to 18 months that it wasn't my strength zone. And I think that's something that you all want to hear and want to remember right now is that almost any lead generation lever can work when it's worked well and it's worked consistently. So what you need to do is find the one that fits within your strength zone and that you can be most committed to. You know, they hit the saying, which I don't love the saying, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. That's just a disgustingly morbid saying. At the same time, it's in existence for a reason. There's a lot of ways to do something, a lot of ways to, let's say it that way instead. There's a lot of ways to accomplish something. And when you try to do all of them, you're going to do all of them poorly. Yeah. If you pick one or two, you can crush it in that area. Now, when I say I hammer the phones, let me give you some perspective here. I made on average 3,000 phone calls per month. Now, when I say that number out loud in a class or in a coaching session or on a call like this, people instantly check out. So come back with me for just a second. I want you to do some math with me really quickly. How many average business days are there in a month? Now, I'm talking Monday through Friday, even though we're real estate agents, we work 7 days a week. I get it. There are 22 Monday through Friday days on average in a month. If you take 3,000 calls and divide it by 22, it comes out to 136 dials per day. Now, I'm saying dials. I'm not saying I'm talking to 136 people per day. Now, 136 might still sound like a good chunk of numbers. I get it. It was for me when I first started. And then I moved up and moved into efficiency and moved into effectiveness. And it only took, on average, 1.5 hours to 2 hours per day.
Partner support, giving you a call back.
Sorry about that.
Hey, David, Michael, you said you want a phone call. So if somebody's making a phone call.
Wait, you muted yourself, Michael. Come back.
Don't know how that happened. Let's get back on track. I love it. Whatever that was, I love it because someone putting into action immediately what we're talking about here. So 136 dials per day. When I started using a rapid dialer, when I started getting consistent and putting people in the CRM, you put them in command, you have them organized. It becomes so much more efficient and effective for you. Now, I'm only going to speak for a few more minutes because I want to bring Bob Walaka, who is a 20-year veteran in real estate sales and a 30-year veteran in the sales industry in general, in just a moment. However, I want to give you some perspective first. Why for sale by owner and expired? I have 3 main reasons. Number one, for me, it was the fastest way to find an opportunity for a listing. And here's why. A for sale by owner, and you may have heard this before, a for sale by owner has a hand in the air saying, I am willing to sell my property right now. Right now. And expired, we consider has 2 hands in the air. I was willing at one point, I might still be, to sell my property. And what we like to hear, I'm willing to pay someone to do it for me. Now, the challenge is that the market will dictate which one's more prevalent at times. When I first started prospecting expireds on January 1st, which we call National Expired Day, I would have 700 plus expireds to call. Some years I've had less than 100. Whereas for sale by owners creep up in markets like we have today. So the challenge there becomes the for sale by owner does not see the value in hiring an agent. Otherwise, they would have done so already. Is that a fair assessment? I, as a for sale by owner, have said, I don't value you as an agent. I can do this myself. I can save the commission, or I can do whatever you think you're going to do for me on my own. We know that's false. We know that the average for sale by owner will make 7 to 14% more money when they list with us. They don't know that yet. They don't know all the troubles that they might have selling their property. The challenge on the expired side is that they just broke up with an agent, whether it was yesterday or it was 2 years ago. So they're once bitten, twice shy. And so we have to overcome some form of challenge or perspective with a for sale by owner or an expired to really get them to see the value in what we truly do and why we're different from agents that may have come before, that may have said something before, that may have promised and underdelivered before. So we have to separate ourselves. So my challenge to you right now is to get really clear on what do you bring to the table for your phone calls. And then of course your listing appointments, for them to see you're not like all the other agents that call once or twice or 3 times, promise something or ask for something immediately, and then don't deliver. Now the mindset around this, I want you to think about this. Right now in your market, there is somebody that is attempting to sell their home as a for sale by owner. There is probably somebody, if not dozens of people, that are thinking about listing their property, whether a for sale by owner, a previous expired, or just somebody in general. And number 3, there is somebody in your database right now that would sell today, would list today if given the proper options and the proper information. So what are you bringing to them to get them to think, my goodness, yes, this is the right time for me. You know what? I had a bad experience. This feels different. He's shown or she has shown me that this is going to be a different situation this time. Yeah, let's do it. The last thing I'm going to say before I bring Bob in is this. It will boil down to consistency plus value. Consistency meaning how frequently and often are you showing up in their world? If you want a specific tip on this, call every potential seller you've ever spoken to every single week. And what Cody Gibson likes to say is your first 1 or 2 times making contact with them, that's when you use your best scripts. Yeah. That's like you're pulling out all the stops to show value immediately to attempt to push for or convert to an appointment. It doesn't happen every time. How many contacts do you need to make to set an appointment? For me, it was 26 on the seller side, 26. So I got a lot of no's before I would see a yes. The consistency though piece was if I'm showing back up in your world every single week, I'm more likely to cross paths with you when your brain and your heart have connected, saying brain says logically, I need help on this. Heart says, I'm going to sell this because I want to move to another state. I want to be able to fund my kids' college fund, whatever that is. Head and heart connect. I want to cross their paths as quickly as possible. And the only way I know how to do that is to show up consistently in their world. The other side is the value. What value are you bringing on every single conversation? What are you following up with on value? Is it a bit of information? Is it, hey, you could do these 10 things to get your house more in shape for sale to make top dollar? Or, hey, here's some statistics on what's going on in the market today that you might want to consider when you're thinking about selling your next home. What value are you bringing to that? Now, Bob Wolaka, as I mentioned, is a two-decade veteran in the real estate sales space. And if anybody knows how to hammer the phones, it's this guy. So Bob, are you on?
Yes, I am, sir.
Mr. Wolaka, I want to just go ahead and do us a favor and really quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Bob Wolaka. I am with Keller Williams, South Bay, the United Home Group. And I'm getting an echo here. I don't know why. Tell you what I'm going to do. Let's go on this thing right here. You hear me okay?
We got you, buddy.
We got you.
Give me a thumbs up if you hear me, Mike. All right, perfect. Good. Yeah, I was getting an echo and that was bad. I'm with United Home Group. I'm in the South Bay area, Southern California, Redondo Beach, right? The ocean's right there, by the way. And beautiful area. Love it. I originally came from the Sacramento area where Putty is now and built a database of business there over 17 years and decided because my wife wanted to live here that I was going to come down here and replicate what I did up there and build business down here. And I know the tools to use, like Putty talked about, a dialer, making the calls, reaching out to the right kind of contacts. And in my first year and a half here, I was asked to be on the ALC because of my production and because of the results I was able to produce. And last year did 10 million in sales in my second year in this market, a market I'd never been before, where I knew this many people. So these things that we're talking about, these calls, they do work. And I saw the comment from Rebecca Bell and from someone else about Putty's voice, and I'm sure you can already tell I have a face for radio.
All right. So Bob, can you hear me, bud?
Yep.
Good.
Yes.
All right. Tell us a little bit specifically about what you do and how you have been able to build a business in a place where you knew basically nobody up to a sizable business in production, and it's only growing now. What specifically do you do, and what would you want them to take out of this call?
So one of the main things is put lead generation on your calendar. Block that out. If you look at my Google Calendar, 8 to 11, Monday through Friday, is blocked out for lead generation. And that time is sacred, holy ground. Thou shalt not transgress upon it. Thou shalt not do any showings. Thou shalt not do any home inspections. Thou shalt not do anything except lead generation during that time that you have blocked out for lead generation. Thank you, Ryan. And for all of you that may not work, that's okay. Maybe it's 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. Maybe it's noon to 3. Maybe it's 5 to 8. Whatever it is, block it out and do it. By the way, I've been asked, when's the best time to call? When do you make the most contacts? Somebody did a study a while back. They locked someone in a room 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, over a 2-week period. You know what they found out? There was no best time. The best time is when you are at your best, when you are on top of your game. And I find that I'm at my best. I have the most energy in the morning. So that's when I'm going to make my calls. And yes, people do pick up. I will be real with you here for a minute. Over the last couple of years, I have seen my answer rate, contact rate reduce. It was previously 10%. Now it's down around 4%. So that means I have to make more dials to get to the contacts that I need to make. And I call for sell by owners, expireds, pre-foreclosures, absentee owners, circle call around businesses. And to get specifically to, I've had the more success with for sale by owners than expireds. Let's be real. In our market right now, where everything is selling and getting multiple offers, are you getting a lot of expireds in your market? No. Go back 2 years. Go back 3 years. They haven't been called in a little while. So yeah, talk to those folks. The for sale by owner, I love for sale by owners. And my approach with a for sale by owner, I'm not going to talk to them on the initial call about listing with me, about your price is wrong, about the dangers that you're going to have, about how you're going to make more money working with me. My first call to a for sale by owner is to get in the house. I want to get in front of them. Just walk. I want to be able to see them, meet them, look them in the eye, and have a conversation with them.
Real quick, why do you want to get the door so fast? I mean, I mentioned the statistic that, and in fact, maybe I didn't actually, that we know that over 80% of people will hire the first agent they meet. So does that factor into your desire to get in that door as quickly as possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The sooner you can get in front of them, and a lot of agents are going to call attempting to get the listing. And for sale by owners tell me, yeah, all these agents call me trying to get the listing. That is not my approach. I ask them, are you willing to work with a buyer's agent? Because we have helped buyers purchase for sale by owner homes. And by the way, that was a married couple that I helped buy a for sale by owner home one time. So y'all can use that line now, by the way. We, as real estate professionals, have helped buyers, husband and wife, buy a for sale by owner home. So you can all use that now when you're calling for sale by owners, because we have done that. So, and that's my approach. And then it's great. If you're willing to work with a buyer's agent, let's meet. I want to see your place. I want to take a look at it, see if it's a fit for one of the clients I have or one of the clients I will have, because I do a great deal of marketing for the sellers that hire me, and I could have somebody left over. meaning I'm throwing you the scraps unless you hire me. Innuendo. So, and that allows me to get in the door and have a conversation with them. And when I come from giving value, I want to help you find a buyer. Are you doing an open house? Will you let me hold it open for you? Do you need to use my signs? Here's some security tips you may need. Here's a market value report on what's going on in our market right now. I'm giving value to them so that if they're not able to sell it, guess what? And I'm showing up on a weekly basis. For sell by owners can be a long-term play. Showing up on a weekly basis, giving value so that when the time comes, I'm the only one standing.
Love that, Bob. What I think is important for everybody to hear there is you're not like every other agent or many agents where it's first call, it's, hey, I want to list your house. That's not the vibe. That's not the impression. That's not even the statements that you're making. It is purely coming from contribution. And we talk about that so much. And Bob, I actually got the phrase from you that you got from somebody else, giving value without the expectation of anything in return. Yeah. How do you incorporate that? How do you make sure that stays at the forefront? Maybe when, the market's shifting, the market's changing, and you're like, I want listings right now. I need buy. How do you keep that at the forefront so that way your prospecting comes through as genuine and authentic, not salesy?
What Zig Ziglar said, you can have everything in life that you want if you'll help enough other people get what they want. And I keep that at the forefront of my mind every time. I go onto calls like this and give value to other agents. I teach classes in my market center and other market centers so that I'm continually and consistently giving value to others. And when it comes to clients, same thing. Is there something I can provide to you? How many of you ever heard, I'm going to die in this house?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to die in this house. We think that's a dead end, quote unquote. I always ask, great, how are you feeling? And they laugh. And then I ask, is your property in a trust? So that when the time comes, it conveys to who it needs to or who it should. And I had a lady once tell me, no, you know what? It hasn't. I got to get it in there. Great. Can I hook you up with my trust attorney? Yeah, please do. I connected the two of them. The next day, my trust attorney called me and said, Bob, I have a referral for you. Giving value without expecting anything in return. I was door knocking in advance of an open house and met a lady. I'm going to die here. Great. Do you need any help with repairs on your home? That's another thing you can ask. Repairs or improvements. Can you refer them a great handyman, painter, carpet person, whatever? Yes, you can. You should have those resources. And she said, yeah, I need a repair on this door over here. I said, great. I've got a great handyman. I'll get you connected. Gave her my card. The guy did the job. He was great. Followed up with her. Then I didn't hear from her for a year. And I got a call from her nephew who said, are you Bob, the one that referred the handyman to my aunt? Yeah. How's she doing? Well, she passed away. And it's okay. She had cancer. She went in 6 weeks. But she gave me her card before she passed and said she wanted you to sell her house. Give value without expecting anything in return.
All right, Bob, I've got one more question for you. I know you're actually heading up north to see your son-in-law and daughter in a play, I believe, or
No. They have a band. By
Excellent.
the way, check out the Baddest Beams, BADEAMS, Baddest Beams. They're on Spotify, Apple Music, all of that. They just dropped an album a week or two ago. Anyway,
excellent.
Yes.
Excellent plug, my man. Perfectly done right there. All right. One final thing for you, Bob, is those hearing that I made 3,000 phone calls per month, that you make a ton of phone calls and it's constantly value, you're going to still get kicked in the teeth at times, aren't you?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
How do you work with that? How do you work through it?
It's happened so many times that I just recognize, and you and I had a conversation about this. Anytime anybody treats you harshly, mean. I've been told I hate real estate agents. I hope you and your children die of AIDS. I have been told that over the phone. Understand they're doing that because there's something going on in their life. It has absolutely nothing to do with you. They're taking their anger out on you. And Buddha had someone that he was his enemy or what have you. And it's a long story. However, the end of it was that person was trying to give me anger and I chose not to receive that gift. I took it a different way. And so I'm not going to receive their gifts. And when they hang up, I just have fun. I continue having the conversation out loud that I would have had they stayed on the phone. Or I'll sing, or I'll just do something stupid, because yes, it will happen. By the way, if you're making cold calls and you get told to F off, let me know. I'll send you a box of chocolates. Because if you make enough calls, it will happen. Period.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I'm glad you shared that story, because I think that is one of the reasons a lot of us resist moving into what some people consider cold calls. I call them warm calls because I'm calling a lead that actually wants to do something with their real estate property. That to me is a warm lead. They just don't know me yet.
Right.
So it's a cold intro to a warm lead. That's a different way to frame it in your mind. I want you to share that story, because a lot of people resist making those calls for that exact reason. The fear of rejection, or getting yelled at, or having someone say something like that to you. And if you can give grace, if you can remember, it's just a reflection of what's going on in their world right now, not a reflection of you as a person. It's so much easier to ride through that and come right back and say, hey, we had a bad day yesterday. Call them the next day. We had a bad day yesterday. Bob sent a letter in the mail just recently. He's got a program that we're working on together. He sent a letter. Someone emailed a very harsh statement to him, and the next morning woke up and took the time to email Bob saying, hey, I'm sorry I was so harsh. I was having something going on in my life. Proof of concept right there that people are just people having a human experience. So give them grace. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate you, man. Enjoy the concert. I'm going to bring on Mr. David Coker. Now, David Coker has built a sizable piece of his business through expired prospecting. Specifically, David, are you on, unmuted, and ready to speak for a few minutes?
I am.
Awesome. David, why don't you give everybody here, by the way, David's in Florida as well. David, why don't you give everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been in real estate now just over 4 years, going on 4.5 years. I've been with the UHG team a few years now as well. And kind of the reason why I'm here is I started my business cold calling expireds, or calling expireds, even before I had a license. So I got hired on as an hourly sales associate, or just a sales representative, and making appointments for my previous broker before I joined Keller Williams, while I was getting my license and going to school and things like that. So I kind of cut my teeth on expireds from day one, and it's been, propelled my business ever since. And it's definitely been one of the largest points of my business. It got me into the luxury space. And I would say majority of my, listings come from expireds.
So the majority of your listings come from expireds, David. How do you approach them? Can you give us some specifics on what you do and how you do it that we can then take into our businesses today and into the future?
Yeah. So pick up the phone consistently and call. It's that simple, but obviously there's a little bit more that goes into it, but it is as simple as that. It's the consistency of making the calls every single morning. I usually do between 8 and 10. Now, I'm going to start trying to get back to the way I used to when I was first starting out, where it was 8 to 10, 4 to 6, and Saturday. And those were my days of calling, and I was getting the best results because I was hitting it at different angles. And it literally is just consistency. So utilizing a dialer like we have through UHG is going to keep you more organized and allow you to make more calls consistently without wasting time. That's going to be huge, is utilizing the power of a dialer. That changed my game, especially like I know a lot of you guys join Keller Williams and you get Red X leads, and there's that whole list of sheets, and now you're on your phone like 4079. It's going to take you forever, and you might make 10, 20 calls an hour. So a dialer is going to help you to speed through that. The biggest thing too I can give as far as advice, would be to practice with others, not the sellers. Don't do that. I did that because I didn't know any better. And my first calls for probably 4 or 5 months, all were just practicing without a script on sellers. Then I started to find a script and practice the script, and I got into coaching and things like that. Then I also got into Keller Williams, and I switched over to the Keller Williams brokerage as well as UHG. And we have a lot of training, script call practice, things like that. Overcoming objections is, I don't even like calling objections. Actually, to me, they're actually complaints, and you'll learn that too. The more calls you make, they're really kind of just complaining about something, kind of like what Laka said. They have something going on in their world. That's not your fault. They're just aiming it at you in that moment sometimes. But when you're practicing and you're listening to these complaints, you're able to maneuver with them. It's kind of like a sport. You're bobbing and weaving. You know, when they're throwing objections at you or complaints at you, you're able to handle them. But practice is what's going to do that. And internalizing a script, I don't care what script. I've used Mike Ferry scripts, Tom Ferry scripts, Keller Williams scripts, UHG scripts I've bought online, all over the place. But it doesn't really matter. Just use the ones that are working or the ones that you know the best and that you can internalize. And the consistency is the key. If you do it enough, you're going to get results.
Want to give everybody an acronym. As you know, Keller Williams loves acronyms. The acronym for the script or the internalization of scripts is MIP: memorization, internalization, personalization. And if you go to the MREA, there's a triangle, not the LLL triangle, leads, listings, leverage triangle, the one that talks about models, systems versus creativity. At the bottom of the triangle is models and systems. Memorization and then internalization is a model, finding something that, as David said, that works and memorizing that over and over and over again. And then you can add your creativity. And the beautiful thing about following a model, David, I think you would agree, is as you get to know it so well, it almost becomes personalized organically because you get to speak as you would speak normally. Your tonality, your tempo, the words you choose to use find their way into the breaks, find their way into the conversation. So MIP: memorization, internalization, personalization. There it is. Follow the model, follow the steps. So David, quick question for you is, how long will you follow up with an expired until they've listed with someone else, if that happens, before you give up?
Just exactly that, until something happens. So until they list with me, until they have listed exactly with somebody else, until I've reached the point of I can't go any further. If they've listed with another agent, I can't really go any further than that. So consistently following up week after week is the key. And I don't know if you guys have mentioned it yet on this call, but the numbers start to dwindle. You will be, if you're calling right away and they just expired that morning, you might hear, you're the 75th agent to call me this morning and it's only 8 o'clock. Like, I've heard that 100 times. There's ways to overcome that. Again, I don't consider those even objections. Again, they're complaining that they've been getting a lot of calls. They're not objecting to you calling them. They're not telling you, no, stop it, don't call me. They're saying you're the 5th person, 10th person, 20th person. So once you do that, you now can go forward and say, okay, great, now let's continue. And you're 75 day 1, you might be 40 week 2. And then week 3, you're probably 10, to be honest, maybe less. You're one of maybe 8 or 9 that have actually followed up week 3. Listings like this one behind me for $1.6 million. This is an expired that I called. I was one of many agents to interview for the job. I was also, one of a lot to call. I don't remember how many, but a lot to call. But I followed up. And this took me about a month to get the listing after calling and calling and calling. But is it worth it? Yeah. I mean, it's definitely worth it because now I have a $1.6 million listing coming on the market. So that consistently, go until you can't. Go until either you've listed it or they have listed it. Now, another big point, and I don't think most people, because I teach a lot of these expired classes and I've gone to them and I've learned from a lot of other people. Once you've gotten the expired mastery, scripting, internalized, doing the MIP, and you're making calls, switch to focusing on your listing appointment 100%, because that's where you need to close. Partner with us, partner with a mentor, partner with other agents who are doing what you're doing, or at least going on listing appointments. Because I've worked with agents in the past who are like, yeah, I'm getting like 4 or 5 appointments every couple of weeks, or I'm getting like 7 a month and they're listing 0. So just because you're getting the appointment, that's awesome. That's the key when you're on the phone. Don't forget that. Get the appointment. That's it. That's our only job. If I can say, hello, I'm David KW, and they're telling me to come on over, then my script ends right there. So get the appointment. As soon as you learn how to internalize the scripts to start getting appointments, switch over to focusing on your listing presentation. It will change everything for you.
Excellent. David, appreciate you, my man. And we've got a few questions. I know, Ariel, we wanted to save about 10, 15 minutes for questions here. I see a few of them popping into the chat. David, Bob, I see Bob still on. If you want to take some of these, go right ahead. The first one that came up, and it came up a couple of times, was DNC, do not call.
Yep.
Follow the rule. Follow the rule. If it's on the do not call list, do not put it into your dialer. Do not call that number. You do not want the fine that's associated with it. Now, what we also know is a lot of people put their numbers on DNCs years and years and years ago. Still, we got to follow it. So there's other ways to get around that. Now, I know this is being recorded, and I know there's 120 something people on here. However, I'm a stalker. When it comes to tracking down listings, I'm a stalker. If I can't get you on the phone, I'm going to find another way to get in front of you. I'm going to show up to your house. I'm going to find you on social media. I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to get in front of you, because I'm going to lead with value. And when I lead with value, what I feel, at least, maybe it's my way of rationalizing this or tricking myself a little bit, is that why wouldn't they want to hear from me? I'm bringing value to them. So the DNC, the simple answer is follow the rule and then go around it in proper ways. Another question that came up, and I'll let this one feel, how do I get to the DNC list? That's the beauty of it. It's a public list. And any one of the number scrubbings like Cole Realty or RedX or Mojo or any of the data, USA Dialer, all sorts of data will scrub that for you because they have to. Land Voice, they will scrub that data for you. There was another question I want to scroll up to real quickly. Actually, one of them, it's a statement and then a question. I've been following up with a few for almost 4 months now. What do you do?
So you've been following up with a few expireds for a few months, and I'm guessing I haven't gotten the appointment or the listing. If you haven't gotten the appointment, there's got to be an underlying reason why. If they're telling you they're not willing to sell, are you not wanting to sell now? Or are you not wanting to sell ever? That kind of goes into the I want to die in this house kind of aspect, but they wanted to sell at one point in time. And this is a big reason why I like expireds, because to me, expireds have two hands up. They've already done this. A for sale by owner might just be testing the market. They might hear that it's the hot market and they want to throw it out there, but an expired has already done it. They've already seen a listing agreement, which I know a lot of agents that I teach this to, they're afraid of asking for them to sign this piece of paper that lets them list the house, or they're afraid that the seller's going to have questions or hate that to sign something because people are just very adverse to contracts. They've already done that. They've already gone through the agent process. They've already signed it once. They've already thrown their house on the market. They've probably had some showings. They might have done an open house or two. So they've gone through that process. So find out what the crux of it is. The main reason why you're not getting appointments or the listing, you might not ask the right questions or enough of the questions to build your ammunition to get that listing or get that appointment.
Great point. All right. I saw a question come up, and actually Bob just answered it in the chat. What calling platform or dialer do I prefer, or do you prefer to use? Now, here's my answer. It's also the same answer I give when I get the question, which we get often, around what CRM do you use? The cheap answer is this: whichever one you're going to use most. That's the simplest answer. Now, that's the cheapest answer too, because there are better than others. Command is an amazing CRM for what you need to do within it. The dialing platform, Bob mentioned Mojo. Lawrence used Vulcan 7. We use Callfire for a lot of our utilitarian reasons, because it's just, you can load a ton of numbers in it. It's cheap, it's easy, and it can scale pretty easily. It's whatever one you're going to use the most, and then whichever one works the absolute best for what you're doing. Simple as that. I saw earlier, Ryan, I believe, put in there that you can click, and Chris did too, that sometimes you may not need to use a dialer. Some of you may not be willing or able to invest in your business to have a dialer. I think that's one of the first things you should do if you're going to be a phone prospector. Absolutely. Because I've done the math, everybody. I'm a math nerd. I like doing math when it supports my reasons. I did the math on how long it takes on average to make a manual dial. It takes 1 minute and 20 to 1 minute and 40 seconds, depending on the carrier, because voicemail greetings are longer on some. Verizon. It takes longer to get to the actual point where it goes beep. It takes longer, unless you know the shortcuts. 1 minute and 20 to 1 minute and 40 seconds to call one person, wait for it to go to voicemail, and leave a voicemail. On a dialer, even a single line dialer takes 24 seconds because it dials for you. It goes right, it waits until they don't answer, which they don't 90 to 95% of the time. And then it automatically leaves a voicemail for you if you've pre-recorded one. So I can do 4 times as many dials in the same amount of time if I'm using just a single line dialer. Now, what Ryan put in the chat was, if you have Google Voice, you can click on the numbers and that'll automatically say, do you want to call this? And then it'll call. At the very least, you're taking out the mind portion of it of, do I really want to dial this phone number? and actually have to then hit the buttons and wait, at least you're just clicking and going, clicking and going, clicking and going. And that'll save you about 10 to 20 seconds and a lot of tedium of having to dial the number over and over again. Find ways to be just a little bit more efficient, a little bit better.
And if you're new to this, I would say start free.
Yep,
Start with
absolutely.
something that's cheap or free. And then work when you actually know after a month or two that you want to do this consistently, then pay for it. Because you can pay, Vulcan 7 is one of the most expensive ones, but it's $300, $400 a month. However, when you multiply that by 12 months, that's like one average sale in most areas. So you take one commissions check, you stick it aside, and you paid for the year of your dialer. And if you got 2 expired that year, guess what? Now you're making profit.
Reinvested earnings. Put your earnings back to the things that are going to make you better and more efficient in your business. Raina, I think is how I say your name. And if that's not, I apologize. What if they don't answer anymore? Here's my response to that. Don't stop. Now, what we're talking about mostly is making phone calls, phone prospecting. That does not preclude us from also sending text messages. Bob has gone through a period recently where his average answer rate was like 4% on the phone. I've had it be 2% once. It's a grind when you make 300 phone calls in one day and talk to 6 people. It's a grind, and you keep going, keep going. So that's answer number 1 is keep going, keep going, keep going. Introduce other things. If I can't reach you by phone, I'm going to text you. If I can't reach you by text, I'm going to stalk you. If you're a great opportunity, I'm going to show up in front of your door. One of my partners was here and he was a little averse to for sale by owners. And so one day after our lead generation, I said, get in my car. And all we did was we drove down to the first for sale by owner that we couldn't get on the phone. We knocked on their door. Guess what happened? They weren't there, which is also going to happen often. So we left a note and then we followed up. My point is you just do other things. There's also been other times where we've knocked on doors, they've answered the door, and we've ended up taking that listing either in a week or 2 months. It will happen if you just keep putting yourself in front of it. That's the idea behind the consistency, is continuously putting yourself in front of good things, good opportunities. And when they say no, if you want to write anything down and tape it to your wall or put it on your monitor, I would put a period after the N and a period after the O in the word no. Because what that really means to me is next opportunity. You've said no, great. Next opportunity to either pour into the next person to convert to an appointment, or to continue pouring into you by asking more questions on this call or following up with you again. Great. Next.
And that might be no just today.
Exactly. It's not no forever. It's no right now. It's a conditional no. It's conditioned upon, are you bringing me enough value? Simple as that. So keep showing up, keep bringing value. By the way, there's a script that Bob put in the chat that when David was talking about being the 75th person, Bob's used this for years, and I love this one. Someone, if you call someone, oh my gosh, you're the 75th agent to call me today. Amazing. Do I win a prize for being 75th? It instantly brings levity to the conversation, might get them to chuckle. Maybe they don't. That's okay too. Just roll through it. Brings a little levity, maybe even a chuckle, and you can move beyond that. Like David said, then you just go to the next question.
Humor is very, 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 very useful. I do
Absolutely.
it all the time.
If you're not naturally funny, don't try to be too funny because it comes off weird. However, injecting a little bit of humor, like that's me. I don't do a lot of humor because I do it and it gets weird. So I just do a little bit, just enough to where I don't get past that line. I see Raina also said, what do you do with DNC? We talked about that, or door knocking. Door knocking is a great way. Very few agents are door knocking expireds. Very few agents are door knocking for sale by owners. Just show up.
Mhm.
Just show up. Ariel or Ryan, do you feel like we missed any of the questions in the chat, or anybody out there that you feel we didn't touch on enough?
I think we covered all the questions that were in the chat. However, I think Bob wanted to share a little bit about being labeled as a spam risk. Bob, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The carriers, and I'm not sure when this occurred, it might have been a year ago or more, carriers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, what have you, if you use the same number to consistently make a lot of calls over a period of time, will, unbeknownst to you, will label you as a spam risk. We use a system here called showing time that you go to, set up a showing of a property and then it calls you back. I've had incoming calls from showing time be labeled spam risks or telemarketers just because they're using the same number to consistently dial out. And the same thing, if you're using a dialer, which I use Mojo, and I use the same number for a month, I'm going to be labeled a spam risk on some of the carriers on the other end. So here's the solution. And Mojo shared this. I've talked with other agents that do it, have 2 phone numbers. I actually have 3. I have my cell phone number, I have a Google Voice number, and I have an office number. So what I will do now is rotate what number I'm dialing from once a week. That way, I won't get, any one of those numbers won't be labeled a spam list. Just a little trick that you can do to keep from being labeled that. And that's also, if your number's coming across on a cell phone as a spam risk, are they going to answer it? Nope. No, probably not. So it's something I've had to learn over the last year and a half to overcome that.
That's a great point, Bob.
Great tip. All right, Ryan, Ariel, anything you feel that we missed or that we could shed some light on?
I think you guys did an amazing job. Bob and David, I really appreciate you guys sharing your stories and everything that you guys do. I guess I would just say if you had to speak to a rookie, right, or you had to speak to a newbie in cold calling, what would be your number one advice for someone who's just beginning to do their cold calls to FSBOs and expireds? Now, I know, David, you mentioned earlier, go free. So that's an amazing advice, right? Test it out first before you invest in it, right? But what else? What would you kind of give as an advice?
I would say practice. Practice your scripts, any script, I don't care. Just pick one, find one, practice it with your dog, practice it with your mom, practice with your spouse, practice with your kids, but just practice it. So that way you get so comfortable that now you're focusing on the call itself, not what you're saying. And Bob can contest to this. And when you get into it and they're screaming at you, you can come up to their high energy and mirror and match. It's another thing that we teach, but you're not focusing on trying to mirror and match and what you're trying to say and the tonality and the pause breaks. You already know it. It's part of you. And then you can ask the right questions and you can slow it down if you need to and bring them into your realm, but just practice it. Even if you set yourself for 5 days, your first 5 days, you don't make any calls and you just practice for an hour each day for 5 days. And then you start doing it.
Hey, Putty, would you categorize me as script master?
Yes.
Okay. I've been doing it for a long time. Do I need a role play partner?
Nope.
I have 5. 7:30 Monday through Friday, I role play with another agent and continue to practice my skills. A lot of it is helping them with theirs, and I will usually learn something from it. And to David's point exactly, when it's so internalized, it flows out of you. You don't even have to think about it. You're just having a conversation. I can promise you, I use scripts every single day, and I do not sound scripted, ever. And early on, though, years ago, I would have people stop me and say, "Is this a recording?" Because I was just charging so fast and had it so dialed in, they thought they were listening to a recording. So that's where you have to throw laughter and humor, and especially the humor. That if you get the other person to laugh on the other end of the phone, you own them.
So, Bob, that's a great point. I actually want to touch on. And sometimes just going as fast as you can, and they're not even wondering if it's a real person or not, right? How do you feel, or have you guys studied on using dispersonalities or mirroring the other person's personality in order to be effective on your calls?
You get a ton from hello.
Great.
You get a ton from hello.
Yep.
If I get somebody goes, "Hello," then I'm going to be right there with them, and I'm Bob, and I'm calling about this. Or if I get, "Hello, hi, this is Bob. Have I reached?" Yeah, you get a lot from hello.
We believe in the DISC profile so much that on our team call last Friday, we actually went over how to use the DISC to connect with people more to convert to clients. Because like Bob said, and I'm sure David would too, you get so much from the first word out of their mouth. And then you really can get more and more as you go into the conversation with them. And something to share, my mentor around the DISC profile shared with me that if you're a high D naturally and you're talking to an S on the other side, the diagonal from the quadrant, in the quadrant, it is your responsibility and your obligation to reach across into their quadrant and mirror them, not try to pull them over to your side. Imagine being an S where you're secure, you want to be like detailed, you're just whoop, and then someone's like, come over here and work with me and sell this house and do this and do that. Boom, you're fired. You have lost from the get-go. So like Bob just did perfectly, slowing it down, giving detail, whatever the person wants. It's that important. And the first thing to do, in my opinion, Ariel, is to get to know yourself on the DISC profile extremely well. Go to Tony Robbins or do one through another source. Go get to know yourself on the DISC profile extremely well. How do I naturally show up and how do I adaptively show up? Okay, great. How do I then keep that in my mind and I'm cognizant of it? So when I'm having conversations with others, I can temper down, if I need to, my natural inclination, my natural personality to make sure I'm connecting with the person who I'm attempting to serve. My job is to serve them, not to get them to come to my side of the fence. Like Bob said, give value without expectation of anything in return. Go to their side of the fence first. That'd be my 2 cents on that.
And the more way you match with them, the way you bring them to your side of the conversation after that. You can't catch them if you're not fluid. If you're not fluid and you want to be solid as a rock and you want to be only your way and your way, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you're fluid and you can move and catch and once you've honed your skills over time, like Bob was saying, that's the easiest way to do that. Because then you can match them, get on their level, and then start bringing them over to your side.
Ariel, I do want to answer your question really quickly. I promise. I know I speak a lot, so I'll be very, very brief. Around your question to a newbie or to anybody really. And for me, this is something that worked for me. Both of what they said, absolutely, I did that as well. I still do today. Mine was also building up my defense. And what I mean there was reminding myself constantly through affirmations of who I am and why I'm doing this and what I bring to the table, because I didn't like it. And I still don't like it when someone yells at me or tells me, no, I don't like it. I can deal with it and I can let it go right off my shoulder. It's not a big deal anymore. However, early on, it wasn't always the case. And you might be 10 years in the industry and still have that challenge, build up the defense. And I did it through affirmations. And here are the 3 affirmations I used, or questions I actually asked myself. Number 1, it wasn't a question, it was a statement. I'm a great person. I believe truly deep down that I'm a great person. Number 2, I have other people's best interests at heart. And number 3, I will outwork everybody in the room. So why wouldn't they want to be with me? Why wouldn't they want to work with me? I had to say that to myself over and over and over again. So when I went on that call and someone yelled at me, it was like, I'm a great person. I've got other people's best interests at heart and I will outwork. So the next person will want to work with me. That was my state change, my mindset change sometimes to get back into the calls. Because it's really easy when you're cold calling, especially if you're new to it, to go, that was a horrible call. I'm never doing this again.
Can I add 2 things to that, Michael? That's phenomenal because I kind of done the same thing and telling yourself and having your own affirmations. But one thing that I had to start really helping is I do this with every single, whether it's sphere of influence, an expired, a buyer, whoever, I am here to help. And so that kind of ties in exactly what you're saying is because I used to have an issue. I can cold call expireds all day long, but you tell me to call my aunt and see if she knows anyone in real estate who needs to buy or sell or invest. I can't do that. But someone taught me a little while ago to come from the point of helping and envision what would I feel like if I called my aunt or spoke to her at a family reunion or something, and she told me about a horrible experience she had because I didn't help her. And that was what really helped me. And that's why I did so much with expireds and why solely my listings, majority of them come from that, is because I've seen that. There are bad agents out there. It's shocking, I know, but they're bad agents out there. And now we're helping them to get through that process. The second part of that, to answer your question, Ariel, to add on to with these newbies and the new agents, be the first person willing to walk away from every transaction. Because if you go into a listing presentation and you're hungry, you're just thirsty for it, and I need a commission. I haven't sold anything in this amount of time. Not only can they smell that and they can feel it, but you're also going to take a listing where you're going to regret it. And I've had to fire a couple of listings or sellers, and that's what a big part of I learned was be the first person willing to walk away from every single transaction. I don't care what it is. I don't care what the dollar is. I just fired last week, 2 weeks ago, a seller at 1.2 million. Fired him. We brought him 2 offers, full asking price. Things fell apart on his end. And I said, I can't, and let him go after 2 years. But be the first person willing to walk away. It will pay off in the end. I guarantee it. So if you're new and you're trying to get after every single listing that's out there just because, don't be one of those agents trying to make another notch under their belt. The ladies don't like it, neither do the sellers.
That's a great point, David. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Everyone here, go ahead and write your ahas or your nuggets that you've learned in the chat. And again, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. You have given us a ton of value and nuggets that we can take with us. Again, thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thank you guys. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, David.